welcome everybody. I think we can go ahead and get started. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I think hopefully we'll have a few more folks who join as we get going. First, just as we always do, just to try to help us keep track of everybody who participates. Morgan, can you share the attendance form in the chat? There's just a quick Google form for us to track attendance. If you can please fill that out. That just helps us keep a record, so we're not scrambling trying to remember who was on the call with us. So that's been shared in the chat. So sometime during this meeting, if you can just fill that out to confirm that you were on the line with us, that would be much appreciated. And without further ado, I guess we can go ahead and get started. So we've kind of changed around our normal agenda format to make sure we put Kacey's presentation up front and center, since she is our guest tonight. So I will go ahead and start by introducing Kacey, but I think since we're a relatively small group, why don't we go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves before I introduce Kacey, so Kacey has a sense of who is joining us and on the line. I'm sure you are familiar with some of these faces, Kacey, but not everybody. So
yes, and if you guys could share where you're from, that would be really helpful.
Excellent. So why don't we go ahead and just go around, maybe do popcorn, so you can call on the next person. You all obviously know me, but just to model good behavior, I am Zach Schalk, and I'm here in Indianapolis. And I'll go ahead and kick it over to Ron.
Ron Rhodes. I live in Carmel. I'm a member of Elders Climate Action.
You want to call on somebody else to go, Ron?
Oh, okay. I was asleep. Michael.
I'm Michael Mullet, and I'm a refugee from the 1960s who currently lives in Columbus, Indiana. Very interested in solar and very much looking forward to hearing what it takes to get through to public officials as far as solar is concerned. And I will call on Joey.
Thanks, Mike. Joey Miles, Indianapolis, Indiana. Zach Schalk's #1 fan, huge solar supporter of Sun, HOA solar advocates. So interested to hear what Kacey has to say. And we'll go over to Cindy and David.
Hi, I'm Cindy Muse, and I live in Carmel, and I am a member of Carmel Green Initiative. And I will pick on Monica.
Hi, my name's Monica Keneally. I'm a solar owner. I live in Westfield, Indiana, and worked in the energy efficiency field for over 40 years. So big advocate. Let's see, Robert.
Hi, I'm Bob Castagna, living in St. John, Indiana, part of the region in Northwest Indiana. Solar owner. Formerly a student in another city called Columbus, but in another state that you might not want to affiliate with Indiana University. And I'm involved in all sorts of public policy things during my career, state legislative level, congressional level. So I have a burning passion for the environment, economic justice, former legislative director of the Oregon Environmental Council during the 1983 session of the Oregon legislature, 81, I should say. Anyway, been involved in doing this for 50 years.
And it looks like Leslie was able to join us. Thank you, Leslie. Sorry, I don't know what was going on. We're just doing brief introductions. If you wouldn't mind unmuting, just saying who you are and where you're from.
My name is Leslie Webb. I live in Carmel.
All right, thank you so much.
I'm frazzled, so I can't say anything else.
glad you can make it. All right, well, I think that got everybody. So without further
I haven't
ado,
met Dan yet.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. Yeah, Dan and Morgan are my colleagues with Sun. I'll let them introduce themselves as well.
I'm Dan Robinson. I'm the Northern Indiana organizer for Sun. I live just across the border in Michigan, but I grew up in Indiana. And glad to be working there. And I'll kick it over to Morgan.
Hey everybody, my name is Morgan. I am the Heartland Engagement Specialist with Sun. However, I am based in Philadelphia.
Unmute.
Oh, could you not hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm the engagement specialist this time.
Cool.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. And not to be too formal about it, but I will read a brief biography for Kacey Crane. So Kacey is the Executive Director for the Indiana Conservative Alliance for Energy, ICAE. She oversees the organization's efforts to advance conservative market-based clean energy solutions. And prior to ICAE, Kacey served as the Legislative Affairs Director for the Indiana Department of Transportation. And her experience includes working for Butler University, Bakery Drinker Consulting, and various political campaigns. She is a proud graduate of Butler University and is working towards her Master's of Public Affairs at Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. Kacey is a native Hoosier and currently lives in Indianapolis. She is very involved in the Marion County Republican Party and Young Republican initiatives statewide. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kacey, and I will let you take it away.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is fun. I jumped on the team here in May, and Zach has been a phenomenal partner, as you all know. Zach is so helpful in getting people connected and teaching folks about the importance of this issue. And so our organization, let me tell you a little bit about our organization, what we do, who we are, and maybe some of you have actually met with my colleague Tim Phelps did this presentation earlier this year. And so you may be a little familiar with us, but if not, Indiana Conservative Alliance for Energy, we're a nonprofit providing leadership for the state's transition to a reliable, renewable, and affordable energy future using consumer-focused, free market conservative principles, while also standing out for property rights and energy choice. And so we educate folks about an all of the above approach, and we were launched in 2018, but we are part of a national organization called the Conservative Energy Network that is involved in 21 states, and that's about 5 years old. We had our 5-year anniversary this fall, which is really exciting, and some of the states have been doing this work for longer, particularly in Michigan. So I know we have a Michigander with us today. And so the other group that you may know us by is the Land and Liberty Coalition. So they're under our umbrella, and they work to educate local leaders on the benefits of utility scale wind and solar in their communities, and help them draft ordinances. So a little different than what you all are doing, but important to the cause nonetheless. So why conservatives? Why did Zach drag you to talk tonight about conservatives, and why are they important to this conversation? So right here, we've got graphs of the House and Senate legislative chambers. So actually today was the ceremonial start to session, it was exciting to be back in the State House. Last year was weird with how the setup, so it was nice to have some sense of normalcy back. But as you can see, Republicans hold super majorities in both the House and the Senate. Then six of our six statewide elected offices are held by Republicans, and our congressional delegation is 7-2 Republicans. The local level is also dominated by conservatives. I don't know the number right off the top of my head. I meant to look it up, but I've heard the lieutenant governor say in like the high 80% is the amount of local elected Republicans. So our organization, believes that any progress that's going to be made on clean energy in the state is going to be led by conservatives, and we have to be at the table to move forward. So we actually just completed polling, which we ran the poll in the middle of August, and overwhelmingly Hoosiers want clean energy and property rights. So I have 8 specific bullet points that we've really released publicly pertaining to some other issues. If you're interested in that polling, I can certainly get you that information. But pertinent to this conversation, 84% of conservatives believe that market and cost should decide new energy development. What's cheapest? What makes the most sense? 68% of conservatives are in favor of legislation that would prohibit HOA restrictions on solar panels. So Joey, there's your talking point for the next, like 2 months, and then we'll get it across the line and keep going. And then 76% of conservatives support continuing to give consumers the fair market value for the electricity to produce. So that is strong support. And then what's also unique about this poll that we haven't done in the past is we surveyed folks statewide. So we didn't look just at conservatives. We looked at those statewide numbers as well. And, when it comes to net metering, it's high support statewide and the conservative group as well. So hopefully these are great tools to keep in your pocket as you talk about some key messages with folks. One thing I will just caution you, I have already gotten pushback from a couple of a specific legislator that net metering polling is bogus because people don't explain that net metering actually is a cost shift to other customers, which we know is not necessarily true. We're also talking about 1% of generation capacity. So it's, let's say in theory that it did, I mean, it's so minuscule, it doesn't matter. So what are your, and Zach probably has some thoughts on that too, but what are your key messages? All right. I was actually talking to a business today that they're in the renewables space and they're trying to kind of crack into the ag world. And they're like, I don't know, I'm the city slicker from Indianapolis and going and meeting with farmers and nobody trusts me. I was like, you got to talk about pragmatic solutions. That's just what works for everybody, right? The I win, you win, we all win situations. Talking about, I think it was Monica maybe that said that you do have solar on your home. Why'd you do it? I'm sure there was some sort of financial piece that it just made sense for you. I know Zach just put it on his house too, right? Like, why not? Talk about why that was just a logical decision for you and your family to invest. Also emphasize the property rights and energy choice. So if you go back, oh shoot, I don't have this in front of me. I'll be sure I can pull this up separately, maybe if there are some questions. But we have really strong numbers that emphasize property rights. 90% of conservatives support being able to use your property however you want, regardless of whether or not that's putting utility scale wind and solar on it, which I know that's not what we're specifically talking about here, but y'all are engaged folks. You saw what happened with utility scale wind and solar last year at the State House. It went down in a burning blaze of glory. If 90% of conservatives are saying that property rights are important on utility scale wind and solar, that's huge. Additionally, I think those HOA numbers here are really, really critical, that you should have the ability to do what you want on your property. Those are messages that conservatives resonate with, and that are part of, just the basic conservative ideology. And those messages carry well. What I will caution you is to steer clear of climate or don't lead on climate. I know many people are involved in this work because they believe in the environmental benefits and Actually, I did read an article a few weeks ago that shows Republicans are more empathetic to air pollution concerns than they are to other types of pollution. And that was by Dr. Leah Stokes out of actually, I've got her book right here. I can see where she teaches. I think she's like UC Berkeley, UC Santa Barbara. And so that's, you could, if you want to have environmentalism as a component, air pollution's the way to go when you're talking to conservatives. However, our most recent polling showed that the GOP is split literally in half on whether we asked how much do you care about climate change. It was 49-49. So people can't make up their mind whether or not this is an important issue and they care. Then you break down why people think climate change is happening, and they're somewhat split evenly between whether climate change is man-made, a natural event that's just happening because this is what Earth does, or it's not happening at all. So between those people, they're split pretty evenly into 3 buckets. So I would not lead. Obvious, again, kind of that. I think you can, if you want to talk about the environmental things, pragmatic solutions, wonderful. Like, hey, I did this and it's great for air pollution. Cool. It's like a nice side. It makes sense. This made sense for me and the environment's better. Again, talk about those win-win solutions. So tips and tricks, tell your story. Talk about why you care about this, why this matters to you. They are their constituent. I think Joey is great about this with Representative Speedy. Like representatives and senators are only there because you are the people voting for them. And whether or not you did vote for them, they are still responsible and accountable to you. And telling your story and about your community is huge, and it's going to resonate in an important way. Authenticity also matters. Like, don't go in there trying to be somebody you're not. Just be honest, be yourself. These guys are people too. I think when I first started doing this, I was like, oh my God, they're so important. They're state rep. Like, no, they get up and they go to work too, and they put on their socks like everybody else and have to do their laundry. Like, they're not. Keep that in mind, that they are your neighbor and they live in your community too, and you have that in common. So just be yourself and don't get stressed about that. I'd also encourage you to keep it concise. They are so overwhelmed with information and inundated. I mean, during legislative session, they are having meetings they go from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the earliest sometimes. And so keep it concise, keep strict bullet points, make it go. I don't know is an acceptable answer. I'm coming up on my 5th legislative session. I have said, I don't know. I'll get back to you in uncountable amount of times. It is way better to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you, and get them accurate information than it is to just make something up. Because as you know, there are a lot of people working on this and issue, and as much as we can keep tight to the message and keep the facts at the front, that is critical. Also, when you disagree, ask questions rather than debating. Like, this isn't the time to be. I think it's fine to say factually, like, oh, well, actually, we've seen this, and, in a polite way, but don't be like, well, you're just wrong. And, do you get what I'm saying? I might not be articulating that as well as I want, but so for example, with Senator Cook, when he pushed back on me about the polling numbers, I said, oh, can you tell me a little bit more about where you've heard that and where that information's coming from? And so actually I got really good intel on that at the same time. That's just as valuable to try to understand their arguments a little bit better. So also, last but not least, common courtesy just goes a long way, right? Like, just be nice, shake their hands, be yourself. These guys are sitting here, especially for those of you, I mean, I'm going to kind of like, you know, throw shade on Indianapolis, but I mean it more in the sense of like, it's the big city state house. These guys are meeting with lobbyists and Indianapolis power broker people all day, and like, they're tired of it. Like, be the refreshing voice from their district that is kind and respectful, and you're just sharing your concerns in your neighborhood. Like, I think that that's it goes a long way just to be kind, because there's just so much to that job. It's ridiculous. So with that, I think that's all I had, but I'm happy to take questions. That's my contact information as well. So you're welcome to reach out to me. Sounds like I might be helping with some of the breakout rooms too. So I'll stop talking now and see what the people have to say.
Well, thank you, Kacey. I definitely want to create space for questions. Does anybody? I have a few, but I want to let others ask first if you all have some. Go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Kacey. Thank you very much for your presentation. A couple of points, and then maybe you can address them. One on net metering. Can you give us your best thinking as to how to approach the legislators to get them to endorse or support or to provide the impetus to IURC to do an independent value study of solar energy, solar panels, and net metering? Some states have done that. Indiana has not done it yet. Number two, you mentioned about choosing electricity. I moved here 3 years ago from Illinois. I was able to choose my electricity provider. Why doesn't Indiana permit that? And how would you suggest you go about that in terms of freedom of choice?
You got some good questions, Bob.
Number three, my first time before the Indiana legislature came in 2020 session when I went and testified on a bill on coal plants. And I just happened coincidentally to be sitting next to Representative Ed Soliday. And he extended a courtesy to me. I was flipping pages and cut my finger. And I said, uh-oh, I've got a finger cut and I'm bleeding. And he got up and went into an office and got me a Band-Aid. And so we got to talking about his coming from Merrillville and his daughter lives in St. John where I live. And so we sort of hit it off until I got up and testified and said, we need to curtail coal power in the state of Indiana, and we have to come up with some solutions. I don't think he was too kindly taken to that. But anyway, how do we overcome the supermajorities in a way in which we're actually going to see some progress? This thing about net metering and we don't need an independent value study, I think is just bogus. That fits the utilities line of thinking, but doesn't provide the public with a true value study in terms of the one-to-one net metering reimbursement rate. So those are some of the issues that, as a solar owner, effective July 1st this past summer, we put 39 solar panels on it, and I'm doing it primarily for my kids and my grandkids. But I think there should be a just net metering rate because of the money that I invested. Right now, it's projected it's going to take me, I don't know, 13, 15 years to pay off the investment. And beyond that, basically, I'm helping the utilities and helping my fellow ratepayers, and I'm not just getting reimbursed for what I invested. So there has to be some equity here for those who go to the extent of investing in solar energy.
Yeah, that's a lot. And you're right. And actually you hit on a great point. The number one best performing message with individuals regarding this issue is the idea of passing down a better earth to my children and the generations that follow. That is a message that people really resonate with. And I think, like, say that, tell that story, say, I did this because I wanted to have a better earth for my kids and my grandkids. I think that's really compelling. Everybody can relate to that, right? I mean, so, and wanting a better place to live and for the future. So in terms of so I'm going to go backwards. In terms of overcoming the supermajorities, well, one of those things is, that's my job, is to create excitement and movement in the Republican Party, the conservative ideology about clean energy and positioning ourselves. I'll be real honest. I don't think conservatives have, and I'm not really standing out of turn here. Conservatives have not traditionally stepped in the last few years, at least, stepped up to the plate on clean energy issues. They have historically at the federal level, but we really haven't seen much in the last decade, and we got to pull a seat up to the table and be here and have solid, robust thinking on how we do this. And so that's my job. That's why my organization exists, is not necessarily to overcome the supermajorities, but to influence the conservative ideology and help present a position on clean energy for folks who like free market principles, private property rights, and consumer choice. DREG, great question about DREG. Yeah, that one is our national organization, and I'd be happy to send you some of this information. Maybe Zach can connect us afterwards, but our national organization, Conservative Energy Network, just did a study with the University of Texas at Austin, like doing giving grades out to each of the states on how transparent their utility is, how much consumer choice there is. And shocker, Indiana got a D. But where I take solace is that 26 other states got a D. So at least we're not like the lone wolf at the bottom of the pack. We're all collectively sucking. So in some ways that's better. But ironically, Illinois and Ohio were 2 of the 4 A's. Only 4 states got A's, and our 2 neighbors got them. So you're right. Illinois has it. Illinois has a lot more options, and I think it is something to consider in the future and what that would mean. But I think right now we have to be laser focused on what we want and what the ask is. And while net metering policies stand to empower the consumer and loosen the grip of a utility's monopoly on the system, that is one step forward, and a broader deregulation conversation comes second.
So I will just like to interject here quickly, because I want to make sure we do have time for the breakouts. I'm probably talking way too much. No, you're doing great. I'm happy if you share the resource you mentioned, we can send it out to our whole Solar Action Team list. I will just say, on the point of Illinois and Ohio, receiving an A on any utility report card, they're also the states that are the home to 2 of the largest corruption scandals in the nation's history, dealing with influence peddling and straight up bribery from electric utilities. So I'll just put that out there. That's ongoing in both Illinois and Ohio. So something to consider.
Well, that's what we joked, honestly, is like, you need a scandal to like undo some of this stuff, but I'm not suggesting that's the route we go either, but it's interesting. So
I guess
last,
I would just say scandals, despite deregulated markets. So
oh yeah,
that's-
that too. And then the value of solar study, I'll go ahead and let Zach talk a little bit more about the study in particular. I have not been talking as much about value of solar. I've been focused more on that. What is that net metering rate and the monthly in the netting time period? Again, it's property rights, energy choice. You as an individual have the right as a consumer to choose your energy where you want it. And you can do it on your property, and you're helping other people. You're generating electricity. You're producing a commodity, and the utility needs to purchase it for a fair price. That's what I would say. That value of solar study, I'd leave to Zach. Zach's been probably talking about that more than I have.
Well, I will say we do have some messaging materials that are available to everybody on the Solar Action team, Bob, so I can share that. But yeah, I mean, I think the elevator pitch is that the wholesale rate plus 25% is purely arbitrary. You know, even the folks who made the bill have said as much. And there's no reason to not actually try to find an evidence-based, data-driven approach that fairly approximates the value that solar customers add to the grid and the costs that utilities have in serving solar customers, looking forward into the future. But I can make sure to circulate some of those messaging resources. But for now, I do want to, we'll have time for one more question from Mike, and then we should go ahead and we're going to do a small breakout exercise so folks can try to, we'll have 2 different rooms so folks can try to practice some of these messages and strategies that Kacey talked about. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on the theme that you raised here, both of you. I've been doing this for a long time, and most of the time it's been representing Citizens Action Coalition, which at one time or another it varies, 45 to 55%. Who raised Republican, who raised Democrat, it always fluctuates. And, the message that has always worked, which I just don't understand, is this message of power, money, and corruption, and the extent to which the utilities, are exercising political control. And it's not a problem with public opinion. It's a problem with elected leadership not listening to public opinion, because they're listening to the utilities, and the extent to which you basically got essentially this real symbiosis between political power and, being in bed with the utilities. And my question would be, why don't we want to do what we've always done when we need to win, which is to go after that incestuous relationship? There are always going to be Republicans, ambitious Republicans, younger Republicans, who are looking to get ahead and are looking for issues to ride. And I'm just not clear on why it is that we are being silent on these issues and not raising hell about it. Because I think that's what we got to do in order to make progress in this state. You've got to shake up the status quo. You have to break up this incestuous relationship between political leadership and the utilities, especially the electric utilities. So that's my question.
So is the question more on why is that not the strategy, or why is that not the strategy? Is that the question that you're asking?
Well, I guess some people would think it's a tactic. Some people would think it's a strategy. I think it's both. But I think what you want to do is win.
Oh yeah, I love winning.
And as a practical matter, when you have this incestuous relationship, I mean, to me, it's like I'm watching, the stories here about, what goes on with all of this predatory, underage sex and things like that. And this incestuous relationship between power and money and the extent to which these people, they get protected. And the extent to which, I think, as a practical matter, one of the reasons we have so much anomie, so much hostility, so much antagonism toward our institutions is because everybody just, plays patsy with this fundamental issue with regard to power and money and the extent to which it's corrupting the political process. It's a populist issue, and populism, it works both on the right and the left, and we know that. Why don't we play that card?
I really haven't thought. I mean, I think that's some interesting thoughts. And I have not given a thought to that being the strategy or the tactic. What I will say is that at the end of the day, we have to have working relationships with these 150 folks who have been elected and as organizations. And that is it's delicate. That's, I think, would be my first reaction. But like I said, I've not really considered it, but good points.
I feel like I have first like a statement and then maybe a follow-up question that might be useful. As from a statement, I feel like there's a difference between inside game and outside game. I think, Mike, what you're describing is definitely something that constituents and, grassroots, the popular kind of front on this issue should absolutely be bringing up, being insurgents, being a force for change by pointing out, the bad things that we see going on around us. I think that makes a lot of sense, and maybe it's something different from what Kacey is doing in the in the hallways at the State House from her position, from her organization. But I do wonder. I wonder from the second thing that came to mind is I just wonder, in this most recent round of polling, or I know your organization has done at least one other round of polling previously. Have you guys polled ideas about utility monopoly, power, or any of that kind of stuff? Is that something you've asked questions on and have any data about?
And it doesn't look pretty for them, let me just tell you.
So that could be good data to have as well from this poll that you all have done.
I'll share that with you, but I can pull this up right now. The number that we put out in the media was, I don't have all these memorized yet because this is fresh. 78% of Hoosiers and conservatives agree that Indiana should end its regulated monopoly system in favor of a free market system where consumers have choices about where and how they get their energy. That goes a little bit more to dereg, but 78% statewide and 78% of conservatives think that the system is crap. So
competition is the predicate to deregulation. I mean, you don't want to deregulate what amounts to currently an unregulated monopoly. What you want to do is have real competition so that, people have a choice, people have a voice. And I mean, we've done this in the 70s, we've done it in the 80s, we did it in the 90s. Why can't we do it now? We've done it when the Republicans have had, all three houses, the governor's office and both houses. Not this bad, but we've done it before. And, as a practical matter, if you got people who are honest, people who are ambitious, people who have the public interest at heart, they know that you have to break this incestuous relationship between political leadership and the electric utilities. That's just, it's fundamental. If you don't do that, you're going to lose. You can't win unless you break that relationship.
I would say that, well, and Joey can say this too, that we had a meeting with Representative Speedy. He used to be on utilities, and he joked that Sharon Nagel's now, he said, I used to be the counter voice, and now they put Sharon on there. So there are people in the legislature who recognize it and see it for what it is and are doing what they can to make their voices.
Yeah. And you need to get a majority of them is what we need to do.
That's what I'm trying to do.
That's right. Okay, Joey, one more quick comment, and then I think it's time for us to go into our breakout rooms.
Yeah, sounds good. I just wanted to say real quick, I don't know exactly who the polling was done when you asked the question about the regulated monopoly utilities, but and I'm no stats expert, I'm no polling expert. I don't know. A lot of times poll results also depend on how you phrase the question. So if you put a question there about, monopolies, people might think, oh, that sounds really bad. I'm going to answer one way or another. Again, I don't know if it was who exactly the audience was, but I want to make sure that that was known.
I think also that's kind of part of the point, is trying to figure out the best way to frame an issue to get people to agree with you, right? Especially on these issues that are, the honest truth is that most people don't have deep thoughts about this kind of stuff because they flip on the lights and the lights come on and they pay their bill, and that's what most people want. So it's part of what we're trying to do is come up with a way to persuade people to, come to our way of seeing things so that we can build a movement powerful enough to get to that majority. And ultimately move
and the
policy.
rates just keep going up and up and up, and Indiana has fallen from between 6 and 10 now to be somewhere down between 25 and 30 and still falling as far as their rates are concerned. And it's affecting business as well as residences. I mean, when you look at the stuff the task force got, you'd think the people on the task force would want to start a revolution because it's just not good for the state of Indiana. It's not good for business in the state of Indiana to have this type of situation.
Well, it was good to see the Chamber of Commerce, have renewable energy be part of their policy priorities this year. I wish there was more distributed generation of rooftop solar.
Oh, I
as part of
tossed up a question at the luncheon yesterday, actually, about net metering. Crickets. And
I saw somebody who was there tweeting about that, so I'm glad to know that.
Oh my god! Who did? Who tweeted about it? We can talk about this later. Sorry,
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember her name. The journalist who's on Indiana Weekend Review from Fort Wayne.
Nikki. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm looking this up.
Yeah,
Cool. I made it on Nikki.
she basically said there was an answer about extending net metering, and the response was that's up to Cook and Soliday. They'll have to look at that.
And the Dems didn't have anything to say. I don't think they even knew the issue.
Yeah. So, okay, on that cheery note, we're already a little bit over on our agenda. But so we have some breakout rooms that we've set up, which I think, I'd like to try to spend 10 minutes with smaller groups, basically just kind of trying for each of you to workshop on how you might approach your legislator, trying to use some of these framings. This doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be polished, just trying to think through, how you might approach speaking with a conservative legislator about rooftop solar based on the frames that Kacey has shared. Yeah, and thank you, Morgan. Morgan shared the agenda with notes, which includes kind of the bullets from Kacey's presentation, which I think will be good to reference. But hopefully we can spend about 10 minutes kind of trying to workshop some of this stuff and help you kind of come to a sense of what that might look like for you to tell your story with these frames. And then we'll reconvene for a couple minutes after that to try to see if we've learned anything. And then I promise we'll try to wrap this up not too far after 8 o'clock. Does that all sound good? All right. I think Morgan is the magician who will send everybody to.
I cut him off a little bit accidentally. Oops. But you and I will have to join them manually since we're logged into the Sun account, I think. So do you know how to, you're on mute, I can't.
All right, so I just hit join on either group 1 or group 2, right?
Yeah, you should join group 2.
Yep, will do.
All right, see ya.
All right. It looks like folks are coming back into the main room. I do not know how to see everybody on my phone, so looks like we're still waiting on a few folks.
Yeah, there was a 60-second countdown. So
Okay. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but
So Zach, we only have our breakout room here right now. I think we're still waiting on their room to come back.
okay, they're probably wrapping up their conversation. Boy, it's much harder to use Zoom and meeting format when it's a smaller screen. All right, it looks like we have everybody back here now. Is that correct?
yep.
Okay. All right. So for everybody who wasn't in my breakout room, apologies. My computer died on me, so I'm on my phone now. So my functionality is limited, and I will let Dan and Morgan, if anybody is like raising their hand or anything, feel free to cut me off. But so now that we're back together, I did just want to take a couple minutes, to see if we can have folks from the different rooms kind of share if there's anything, any epiphanies that you had, anything interesting that you think you learned personally from listening to other folks kind of come up with their kind of elevator pitch or how they would frame this discussion with a legislator. Is there anything that anybody would like to share? Keeping in mind that we are at 8 o'clock already, and so I apologize for running over.
Zach, I would just say real quick, because Leslie kind of workshopped a little bit of her presentation she's going to be doing to Representative Tor in a few days. And Kacey was Representative Tor. And one of the things, a few things hit me that Leslie was a good model of. One is you could tell she did her homework. Two, you could tell that she was trying to make connections in a personal way for something that was important to Representative Tor, including a colleague of his in the same chamber as he is in. And three, she made an ask that he could do, a very specific ask. So I thought those were three things that I thought were really good about what she did.
Excellent. We actually, Ron talked a little bit about preparing for his meeting with the same meeting that Leslie and Ron are having with Representative Tor. So I'm glad we were able to kind of both discuss that from different angles. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
Well, I was waiting for Kacey to tell us about Representative Cook and why he shut down his meetings with his constituents on this topic. We got cut off at that particular point. Didn't get to Representative Lauer, who I think is a potential future leader in the Republican caucus who might be more sympathetic to us.
I agree on Representative Lauer. He's someone that I would really like to, he is someone that I want to focus on in terms of candidate and legislator education. Being a scientist working at Cummins, he is he's a smart guy. And I think you're absolutely right. He's definitely a target. So keep being friends with him, know him. Senator Cook, I mean, at the end of the day, he gets to decide whether or not he has meetings with people. And it's really unfortunate that he shut everybody down. And that's where I think we defer to leadership and defer to the rest of the committee. But I mean, keep reaching out to him, keep pushing on him.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else have anything you'd like to share?
I have a generic question. Given what we saw with the House Energy Committee, where it didn't hear 13 bills and didn't get to a bill until one came over from the Senate, how do we even raise this issue during the context of a legislative session when they don't want to hear from us?
So I think you're referring to the Environmental Committee, not the Energy or Utilities Committee.
House
Yeah, that's a great question.
Environmental Affairs Committee, right?
Well, I mean, to be in the context of last year, Doug Gutwein's retiring. Doug Gutwein gives zero cares about any of the, he cares about his constituents, but he's like, I'm not gonna stick my neck out, whatever. Everybody deal. So that was interesting. I almost got pulled into that fight when I was at NDOT and I was running scared. I did not want to have to do be involved with the wetlands bill, but I think it's you keep up the pressure. You have to talk to them, and I think that the coalition on the wetlands bill did a good job of going to the media and making media noise about it. But I think actually the wetlands bill is the perfect power of story. Chris Garden, every single time he talked about that bill, talked about the IDEM inspector who screwed up, right? That was the story that motivated all of them to get righteously mad enough to do this stupid bill. If you can give them a good story that they can latch onto and go and tell all their buddies in caucus, that is huge. Because again, go back to that, they're inundated with information and facts and figures. They get a story, they can run with it, and they can sell it. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question, but.
Well, all I know is on that wetlands bill, you had 100 organizations sign on asking the governor to veto, and he basically blew them off.
Well, and I don't really get that one either. That was interesting to me, but like I said, I was able to stay out of the bill, and I was just happy that that bill wasn't my problem last year.
I mean, Michael has raised the issue because the issue, and I speak from experience of having been a candidate for a Democratic nomination for a state representative seat in Oregon in the 1984 primary election. I lost by 23 votes to the spouse of the incumbent.
Ugh.
Oregon had a situation where each individual could get $50, a couple of $100 each year as a tax credit to a political candidate of their choice. And I was able to raise the most money in that campaign, and these are 1983 statistics, of any of the candidates because of the network of friends using the Oregon tax credit approach. So other than having a system where the state pays for the elections of people and you're taking the juice of a campaign, namely money, out of private hands and putting it back in the public hands through public financing of elections, a tax credit approach would at least provide impetus to citizens to donate their money to a candidate of their choice, which would make the election system a lot fairer and not have the utilities buying seats for members. I don't know if that's possible in Indiana.
I mean, I think it's what we need to be fighting for, as Mike has talked about. But I don't think it's something we're going to solve, in the 2022 General Assembly session, unfortunately. So I think we have to use the tools that are available to us, which is, trying to use narrative, as Kacey mentioned, trying to use people power and put as much public and in office pressure on legislators as possible to make our voices heard.
What I'm suggesting is something that in Oregon, at least, they used to say it takes 3 sessions to get a good bill through the legislature.
I agree.
Who introduces the bill to provide a $50 or $100 tax credit per member to be dedicated to a candidate of his or her choice? Who introduces a bill to provide for the public financing of state elections? Those are issues that the dropping of a bill would generate attention and at least generate conversation in the media and amongst the public. Until somebody does it, it's all but talk. And you can always say, oh, this is not this agenda item for this legislature. Somebody has to drop the bill to begin the conversation.
Well, Common Cause would be who would have to start that here in Indiana.
Ask them to drop it.
Well, Julia Vaughn knows what can and can't be dropped. I would say that. Julia's been around a long time, and really quite aggressive. But I think that that's the basic issue. I mean, we have this whole redistricting question. We have a fundamentally corrupted political process in this state. There's no doubt about that. And it definitely needs a solution. And we need a bunch of people working on it. But as a practical matter, in terms of where the advocacy comes on those issues, I mean, Common Cause is definitely the lead group.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of public financing of elections. It's something I worked on when I lived. I worked on personally when I lived in Washington, D.C., which now has public financing of their elections, thanks to part of the campaign that I worked on, which I'm very proud of. But I would like to steer us back to DG Solar issues and try to wrap things up. And I think I heard one other person who say they had a question.
Yeah, if I want to take advantage of Casey's joining us because there are Monica, Ron, Monica, Cindy, and I live in Scott Baldwin's district, and Ron
Yeah.
will be in his district next year. So any advice?
Scott is a great guy. I really like him. I like working with him. He is someone on this issue that's one of the toss-ups. I think he's somebody that could broker a compromise. Again, I mean, the guy is okay. So a couple things. One, he's military. So that energy security argument you're talking about at the national level, that is a huge argument to use with him because it's personal, right?
Mm.
He has been out on the front lines fighting to get more oil for our country. Number two, Scott is intimately aware of local government financing mechanisms with his private business. And he gets how that works. So I think with Hamilton County, you got to just keep demonstrating what it's done for schools and what it's done for the local government, because he built fire stations. Like he knows how all of this works. And
Do you like microgrids? Does he like microgrids? When fire stations in schools?
I think he's just he has not like said to me one way or the other, I am pro or against this. What I have heard him say is he feels like there are benefits to net metering. There has to be, the conversation him and I had was there has to be an in-between between 15-cent retail and 2.33 cents wholesale. And what is that? And I said, so I think he's one of the squishy ones. He's one we could push. And if you make a pragmatic enough case, I think he could turn around on this. He's going to be one of the key players. So keep it up, Leslie. I need you.
I'm so glad we're on the same team, Casey. One thing though about Scott, he has refused to meet. Last session, we had several constituents, must have been about 6 or 8, I can't remember, for Renewable Energy Day, and he didn't meet with us. He blew us off. And then just more recently, a high school student that's working with us reached out to him, and he declined to meet with him. So if you have any advice on that, that would be helpful.
That seems out of character for him.
That's what happened.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, part of it is
maybe I'll copy you. I'll email him, say, hey, I just talked to Casey, copy you and ask for a meeting.
You can do that. I think the other thing is meeting these guys outside of where they're at, like, seeing them at community events, introducing yourself, getting to know them in that way, is huge. And Leslie, you have a position with the city or with your organization in Carmel that you run into these people at places, right? So anytime
seek them out. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so if you're somewhere, if you're at the grocery store, Mike, and you see Rep Lauer, go up and be like, good to see you. How are you? And that way they can't avoid you.
Well, I don't think Ryan would. I don't think Ryan would. It's Cook, and Cook, this is new for Cook. I mean, Cook didn't do this before. And I can chase Cook anyway. I'll find Cook. He knows that. I found him with the League of Women Voters. I found him in the hall at the State House. We'll find him when he's hiding. I mean, they all hide from time to time, as you know. So
sometimes I don't blame him either.
This is systematic though. This is a protocol. This is a program that somebody's running.
It's disappointing when people don't meet with their constituents.
Well, hopefully we can Leslie, I'd be happy to work with you as well to try to meet with Senator Baldwin. I think we can probably get a good number of his constituents, and I'm not sure, is HSE in his district, or we
Yes.
could definitely try to get Bob
Um,
Rice there as well. I'm not sure if HSE is,
No,
but
I
but
think
Bob
that's
at least.
Greg Walker.
Big
Oh,
Rocker's got Johnson County.
It's not.
Not
it's,
Greg Walker.
Yeah, Kyle Walker. You're right.
Kyle Walker. Yeah.
It's definitely Kyle Walker because he
Yeah,
came to our
yeah.
event at
Yeah.
the HSE schools.
Mhm.
But anyways,
But
that's definitely something.
Sheridan and Noblesville also schools have solar too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk to Bob about trying to find a good contact. I know he's worked with both of them.
Hey,
That's-
here's another tidbit too, Leslie, that might be helpful for you is that Mayor Jensen is on our board.
Oh, that's good to know.
So
Oh, yay.
I can be like, hey, Chris. you
Isn't he
know?"
also with AIM?
Yes, he's a legislative director there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask.
Used to be Indiana Association of Cities and Towns, although
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of people don't know that yet.
Let me ask Zach a question in view of Casey's suggestion here that a compromise is going to be cut between 25 cents above market rate and 15 cents a kilowatt hour. Why should we budge from fair compensation at all?
Well, so
we pay to the utility, they should pay us back.
So first to clarify, I don't know that a compromise is going to be cut. I think we would, unfortunately, the law is the law right now. So changing anything, as you know, Bob, is more difficult. So it's an uphill battle. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think where Indiana is, we shouldn't be, changing net metering. Like we should maintain net metering.
Right.
And I think there's no reason not to demand that, but I think we also need to be practical and pragmatic and understand that if SEA 309 is fully implemented in June 30th, it will drastically impact the potential for the rooftop solar market to continue to grow. Right. And even with maintaining that lower EDG credit rate, simply securing monthly netting would at least allow the industry to fight another day.
Hobble along.
So I think that there's a difference between an organizing posture and public demands, and making sure that we can accept a victory, which I do think securing monthly netting would be a victory. Something like increasing wholesale plus 25% for EDG credit would be a victory.
With monthly netting, not with
correct. Thank you, Mike. Correct. So I think that we're actually, Slogan on Neighbors is working on a petition that we're going to post here hopefully soon to try and we're going to push it out and try to kind of build our list leading into the legislative session, making this point exactly that net metering should be extended, and when net metering ends, we should secure monthly netting, so that we're linking those two things together. So even if we don't extend net metering, we're still saying securing monthly netting is one of those key demands, because I think we just have to be realistic about the situation that we're in, because while I agree with you on the merits, I'm not sure that a majority of the Indiana General Assembly agrees with us on the merits.
Well,
so they don't at this point.
Well, yeah.
Are the advocates capable of doing a statewide media tour to educate the media, to get sympathetic editorials in newspapers? And
Zach had a fabulous one today.
We're certainly doing our best, but unfortunately, getting media coverage is just tough right now. I mean, it's for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with power politics, but I think that the renewable energy issue is going to be a live one again. I think a lot of it is going to be driven at that large utility scale, like that's going to be a live policy discussion again. What to do with local zoning and siting rules, and we need to try to get in there and say, hey, rooftop solar is different, and here's why it's important, and try to elevate that issue, which we did have an Indianapolis Star article published recently that really kind of dove into those differences, which I appreciated Sarah Bowman from the Star giving us that opportunity. So to answer your question directly, Bob, we're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
Yeah.
I'd also say like getting 50% of what you want at the State House is like cause for pop the champagne celebration. I mean, you go in with your hard line at what you want and your ask, but I mean, the process is so complicated that to get anything is a big is win. So, I mean, it's how do you measure and define success? Joey, what's up?
And this may be a comment or a question for a different meeting. This might take us an hour to talk about this, which I know we're not going to do. But, you know, we talk about why it's such a struggle to get things done at the State House and, you know, banging our head against the wall with Ed Soliday and all that. Like, I have never heard anybody say anything positive about Ed Soliday. Why does he keep getting elected? I mean, and I'm not an inside game person. I don't roam the hallways. I'm not a lobbyist. I work for the Department of Defense. I'm an auditor, and I do this thing as I was telling somebody in the breakout room, and I'm an accidental advocate just because of my HOA issue. But so I'm not a Kerwin Olson. I'm not a Kacey Crane. I'm not a people who roam the hallways and try and lobby and influence people. Why does so? I don't understand why he keeps getting elected. Over.
Well, I don't think any of us on the line live in his district, so I'm not sure we're the best informed to answer that question, Joey, but it's a good one.
I would also say, if you've never heard anybody say anything nice about him, the man is a very smart political policy architect. And while he may not be on our side on certain things, like the man built the road funding legislation, and that to get that through took real skill and political ability. I think he has and he actually cares about the policy. Again, he doesn't agree with us, but he digs into the weeds. And there are a lot of legislators who do not give one iota about policy and actual crafting, and he digs in the weeds. But he's got some very good friends and deep relationships, and that's how he keeps winning, and that's how all 150 of them keep winning.
Well, I think maybe that's a good place for us to start to wrap up. 20 minutes past the hour, so sorry about
Let's
that,
not
everybody.
stop with Soliday though, please. Let's have something else as an end note.
I have a few more things that I want to get through. So we'll end on some positive things that we can do. But I do want to say thank you to Kacey for being so generous with your time on
absolutely
on a Tuesday night.
Thank you all. Feel free to reach out anytime. And Zach and I talk regularly, so always happy to help. And Joey, I will get back to your email. I'm incredibly behind. I'm so sorry.
Kacey, are you okay with me including your slides just in the follow-up email to folks?
Please do.
Okay, great. I will do that.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Kacey. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So I want to end like we always do with kind of our ask for the month. And because obviously there's a lot going on with the holidays, we wanted to keep it simple. So we have two upcoming events that I would like to ask for everybody to RSVP for and join us. And if you know anybody who might be interested, please help us spread the word. We will definitely share more official information about these events via the listserv. But first, in December, on Wednesday, December 15th, we're going to do a statewide meeting previewing the 2022 General Assembly session. Similar to what we did last year, we're still finalizing the details as far as who's going to be joining us. But there's a link in the meeting agenda, and I'd like to ask Morgan to please share the link to RSVP for that December meeting in the chat. But so again, that's 7 p.m. on Wednesday, December 15th. So please RSVP to join us there. And then finally, you'll definitely be hearing more about this over the coming months. But we are doing Renewable Energy Day again in person at the State House. That's going to be on Wednesday, January 12th. That'll be during the day, but we're going to be at the State House We're going to have a renewable energy fair where sponsors, other advocacy organizations and renewable energy businesses will be sharing information with legislators. We'll have lunch, and we'll also have a media event, and we'll hopefully be working with you and a bunch of other advocates from around the state to meet with their legislators. The last time we did this in person in 2020, I think we ended up meeting with something like 40 legislators during that day. And we had more than 200 folks who showed up. So I'm hoping that we can do something similar. I know, COVID is still kind of an X factor, but if we want to get anything done this year, we really do need to show up, make our presence felt at the State House so they can't ignore us. So again, our asks for this month are pretty simple. Just RSVP to join us for our December statewide General Assembly preview and for the January 12th Renewable Energy Day at the State House. And if you know anybody who's interested, please help us share the word, and we'll definitely share more information about this via the listserv. Finally, I know we're running long, but if anybody has any kind of announcements or anything else you'd like to share, we bumped this to the back of the agenda so we can make sure we got to Kacey at the top of the hour, or the top of the meeting, I should say. I do just want to share one shout out. I know I don't think anybody from Hipple is on the line, but hopefully everybody saw Hoosier Interfaith Power and Light delivering their climate change petition to the governor. That got some really great media coverage, and I think generated some positive energy. So that was some great work that happened recently. But is there anything else that folks would like to share or want to let people know about?
What are the general times for your advocacy day at the legislature?
Good question. So we'll technically start at like 9, but basically from 9 till lunchtime, it'll just be kind of like an open-ended like renewable energy fair. So we have the space reserved from 9 to 3, but I think our media event is going to be at either 11 or noon, and then we'll be trying to make legislator meetings throughout the day, so whenever the legislators are available. So we'll share more specific information. You'll get so many emails about it, you'll be sick of it. So don't worry about the specifics yet, but we have the space from 9 to 3. Anything else? All right. So with that, we would normally end with plus delta, but I will say the delta is that I need to get better about sticking to the agenda, so we're not going too long. And so I think we can go ahead and wrap things up. So thank you all so much for coming out, for being a part of this. I hope you got something out of this from Kacey, and I will share her presentation via email and add it to the Google Drive so everybody can have access to that. I'll also go ahead and we'll kind of re-up some of the other messaging resources that we have there in our follow-up email. So those are all easy to find. And unless anybody has anything else to add, I just want to say thank you, and I'll see you all around soon.